Comes Formula Ford Festival has proved to be the beginning of the rainbow for some of motorsport's now familiar names. This was the manner in which the Belgian Marc Goossens took the title last year, launching himself into Formula 3 and probably beyond. But Goossens couldn't afford to put a foot wrong as he led a train of 10 cars nose to tail around the majority of the 20 laps. That's typical of Formula Ford racing, and so is this. Same race last year, Oliver Gavin collecting the back wheel of Jamie Spence at Druids. Well, Spence's recent driving tactics have earned him a ban from competition. So, ironically, it was Gavin that stepped into the vacancy in the Swift team's lineup to try and improve on his 6th place of last year, a performance that helped earn him the McLaren Autosport Young Driver of the Year award. Young talent and potential is principally what Formula Ford racing and the festival is all about. A weekend of intense competition, 16 heats helping decide the positions for Sunday's 4 quarter-finals. This was Gavin in the first of the quarter-finals, showing real class. 4th to 1st around paddock, and the rest of the field was struggling in his spray. Gavin has been impressive in Vauxhall Lotus this year, but is here adapting back to the formula of treaded tyres and no wings. As ever, any aspiring world champion, though, has to be flexible, patient and determined.
You can't go at it half-heartedly. Money is so hard to find at the moment. You really do have to be so dedicated to it. You have to listen to everybody, all your team says. There's nothing you can do to jeopardise the team or anything like that. You just have to go at it professionally and really just give it 100%.
In the other quarter-final, Denmark's Jan Magnussen in the blue and yellow Foundation Racing Van Diemen already has the pedigree of world champion. He was junior karting world champion in '87 and '89, taking the senior title in 1990. Now, in his first season of circuit racing, he seems to be adapting perfectly, having dominated the latter half of Formula Ford's British Championship season. And he dominated at least the first half of this opening lap. 20 countries are represented and linked by what is often called the world's most successful racing category. It was Neil Cunningham of Australia who eventually coaxed Magnussen into leaving the gap at Clearways that led him through for a quarter-final win. Cunningham, a consistent performer, but only an occasional race winner. The rest of the field streaming through, chasing the qualifying places for the first semi-final of this year's festival. Cunningham's time in that quarter-final good enough to give him pole position ahead of the other quarter-final winner Oliver Gavin. Magnussen and the Brands Hatch expert Chris Hall would make up row 2. The top 14 would qualify for the final, and the race commentator is Tiff Needell.
28 cars then line up for this first semi-final, this all-Swift chassis front row of teammates Cunningham and Gavin. On the second row there, Jan Magnussen and Chris Hall, champion of Brands last year. They await the change to green, and away from the front row, Gavin looks like he's got the best start from the outside of the front row as the rest of the field get away, but Chris Hall makes it even better. Tremendous start from the second row. Chris Hall there, champion of Brands last year. He knows this circuit better than anyone. He's driving a locally built Jamin chassis, and he changes, and a spinner. That's Jonathan Kane, the Northern Ireland champion. Another spinner. They're all off track conditions, still very wet, very greasy, as the leaders slither around Druids corner, down into Graham Hill Bend. Chris Hall takes this famous wide outside line. When it's wet, that's the quickest way round the outside. Gavin, though, comes up the inside along Cooper Straight and calmly swoops by into a lead. Oliver Gavin really looking at the class of the field here today, and he's now looking like he's going to Jan Magnussen up to 3rd, Cunningham 4th. Again, the leaders round the outside at Clearways. It's treacherously slippery. They've used only a one type of tyre in Formula Ford. It's very well suited to the dry. It's treaded, but it's not ideal in these very wet conditions. Gavin then starts the second lap ahead of Hall, and a big gap really back to Jan Magnussen as Chris Hall looks to try and get by Gavin. That's not going to be. Gavin really has got, then this is Jonathan Kane still trying to get back into the race as the leaders come round to actually lap him. So Jonathan Kane taking a lap to get restarted as the leaders come up to swamp him into Druids. Magnussen 3rd, Cunningham 4th, and Frédéric Lenoir, the French driver there, challenging in 5th place, having a very good festival, also driving a Swift chassis. down into Graham Hill Bend, right behind Lenoir. That's another Frenchman. That's Jeanneret, the French championship leader at the moment, battling to hold off and not holding off Justin Keane, the young Englishman who's moved up to Formula Ford just for this festival. He slips through into a very good 6th place. Justin has been very impressive in the Formula Ford festival so far. Trying now to move up another position. Of course, every position in this semi-final is another row up the grid for the grand final, and every row counts so much. And Neil Cunningham, the experienced Australian, he knows that. He knows he needs to hold on tight to this 3rd place at best, trying to keep Magnussen behind him as they stream up to Paddock Hill Bend. Magnussen, though, following in his wheel tracks, trying to work out a way past. The front 2 of Gavin and Hall seem to be getting away from this battle from 3rd as Magnussen looks up the inside, going up to Druids Hill Corner. Cunningham shuts the door down. Lenoir follows, keeping a watching brief of these 2 ahead. But really, Magnussen needs to get by Cunningham. Here a battle, all those nose cones flying. That's Jonathan Kane getting a nudge from behind. Kane still, and a spinner there, right in the middle of the pack. That's Nick Blom, that's actually the Swedish champion, having a lot of problems in this Formula Ford festival as Magnussen have problems of his own trying to get past Cunningham. Cunningham using all his experience to hold Magnussen at bay. The front 2 edge further away. Lenoir comes up now to worry Magnussen in his mirrors. All these Formula Fords running identical engines, 1600cc engines, about 107 horsepower, regulation tyres. Oliver Gavin way out front now. Hall, though, Chris Hall doing a very good job to keeping his wheel tracks as this battle for 3rd drops away slightly. So these chassis, different manufacturers, all with the same engine, the same power, 4-speed racing gearboxes, incredibly close competition where the driving talent really does stand out. They're miniature Grand Prix cars in terms of chassis and tuning that really teaches drivers to make the most out of their chassis, and Cunningham making the most. There's 3 abreast there trying to get out of Druids. That's Kalle Jokinen, the Finnish champion there, using a bit of snow driving tactics out on the grass to keep on the road. The front 6, and there another spinner. That's De Castro, the Spanish driver, last year's Spanish champion, who's done the British Series this year but not having a good festival, as Oliver Gavin, who's having a superb festival, storms by to start another lap, increasing that lead over Chris Hall, and this battle for 3rd place now beginning to close up on Chris Hall. Cunningham still 3rd, Magnussen still looking for a way past. Very greasy conditions, you can't get the cars too much out of shape, they'll be spinning before the drivers can correct them. Cunningham still looking the long way around and into the gravel trap. That's Gonzalo Rodriguez, the Uruguayan, who also impressed in his early heats, but the end of the festival for him. Cunningham wide, Magnussen even wider. Lenoir looking at Magnussen, he wants 4th place. He's got pressure from behind now from young Justin Keane, and Lenoir, another who's impressed greatly in this Formula Ford festival, is trying to get by Magnussen, who made a bit of a mistake there at Surtees Corner. Cunningham's got a breather. The battle now then for 4th, 5th and 6th. Across the start-finish line, up to Paddock Hill Bend, the famous overtaking place at Paddock. If you can't do it at Paddock, you pull in tight for this climb. It's a very steep uphill to Druids Hill Corner. Hall, though, falling back into the clutches of Cunningham, who doesn't have to worry so much about Magnussen behind. No 2 brave manoeuvres going on. Everybody conscious that you need to finish this semi-final to get through to the final. And here a battle going on between a couple of Scandinavian champions. That's Jan Lofgren, the Scandinavian champion, ahead of Thomas Janssen, the Nordic champion. So people from all over Europe and the world contesting this Formula Ford festival. And there, Magnussen now really being very defensive. Lenoir, this Van Diemen chassis, has been the quickest in testing Magnussen, but perhaps these wet conditions not suiting his Van Diemen chassis so much as the Swift chassis that seem to be doing so well. More battling down the field. That's New Zealander Ashley Stitchbury trying to battle to hold off John West, who came 3rd in the Northern Ireland Championship this year. Battles all the way down the field. This, of course, the battle for the lower positions. Only 14, the top 14 go through to the final. And there's a lot of prestige on just getting into the final itself, and these 2 are determined to do just that. John West and another spin. That's Lenoir. And Lenoir trying to get onto the terms with Magnussen just too early on the power through Paddock, and that shows how as soon as the car's out of shape, it's so easily gone in these greasy conditions. Gavin is making, and Cunningham's getting through past Hall. That's Cunningham has got second place of Hall. So that's a swift 1-2 at the moment. The Swift chassis looking best in these conditions. Gavin making it look incredibly easy, but it really isn't. It's incredibly slippy and tricky. Another one, that's Vincent Rademacher stuck in the gravel track. Rademacher, who'd had some problems. He was climbing back up through the field, one of the leading lights in this year's British Championship. But at the end of the festival for him, as the French battle goes on for 6th place now, and this is Jeanneret ahead of Lenoir now, and a Pride of France competition going on here. So, battling up to Druids. Lenoir wants that 6th place back again. He unfortunately had that spin. He'd be very keen to get past Jeanneret. Jeanneret, of course, the leader of the French Championship, with still 1 round to go, and he'll be keen to uphold the honour of France. Down through Graham Hill Bend, along Cooper Straight, and Lenoir there gets the traction up the inside, out of Graham Hill Corner, and easily slides past into Surtees Corner. So Lenoir back up to 6th place, but with a gap now to that battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th that's raging just ahead of him. Justin Keane is his next target, but he's going to have a lot of hard to do. Only a few laps remaining, as Oliver Gavin really looks supreme out front. Teammate Neil Cunningham also equally safe in 2nd place, and the battle now really hots up for 3rd. Magnussen's closed up on Hall, and Keane is closed right up on Magnussen. So this is really where the battle is now in 3rd place. Gavin in the lead, Cunningham 2nd. Hall weaves about Magnussen, looks to the inside at Surtees. Hall tries to shut the door down. Magnussen has to get out of it. Eases onto the brakes. Through Surtees up to Clearways. Magnussen will try to pull to the inside, but it's so slippery on the inside. Again, Chris Hall uses this Brands Hatch round the outside line. There's more grip there where there hasn't been a lot of rubber laid down. Where the rubber's laid down on the apex of the corner, it's very, very slippery, like ice. So Chris Hall shows Magnussen the long way round the outside and keeps that 3rd place. But Magnussen's not going to give up. Paddock Hill Corner. Again, round the outside, Chris Hall trying to keep the traction going. Magnussen, though, gets the quicker exit. He's going to look to the left, look to the right. Can he go down the outside on the brakes? The car weaves under braking. Justin Keane drops away slightly. This battle goes on. Chris Hall covers his tracks, though, and they're edging slightly closer to Cunningham as they go down through Graham Hill Bend. Now Magnussen pulls to the inside. He gets the traction, the drive, and this is up at Paddock, and that looks like a broken front suspension that sends the German Ralf Eisenreich into the gravel trap and out of the festival as Magnussen closes up to Paddock Corner the long way round the outside. Can he pull that manoeuvre off? Chris Hall, though, knows how to defend at Brands Hatch, but he's gone out slightly wide. Magnussen's going to pull to the right. Hall out on the old circuit. You can't do that too often. If you do that again, you risk a black flag and disqualification for using that part of the track, but it paid off for Chris Hall on this occasion. He keeps 3rd place, and it's all down to the last lap now to see whether or not the young Danish sensation can get 3rd place off Chris Hall. Magnussen then back in his wheel tracks. They're edging ever closer to Cunningham, who's still lying a comfortable 2nd place. Gavin out front. Magnussen wants 3rd place. He wants to be on the 3rd row of the grid for the final. Every position will count for so much, but really he tries the inside line. Magnussen tries to get some drive off the corner, tries to find greater traction, and really he's right in the perfect position now in the slipstream. He'll hold in the slipstream, pull out there. The momentum as the car is pulled out of the slipstream. He's up along the inside to Paddock Corner, round the outside again, but Hall later on the brakes. But Hall gone out wide. Magnussen this time must have done. He pulls inside yet again. Hall out on the old circuit again. Magnussen, though, this time is fully up the inside for Druids, and 3rd place must be his reward as they go into Druids Corner. So slippery in these conditions. But Magnussen there persevered, tracked him down. But Oliver Gavin, no pressure, no problems out front, just the pressure of these treacherous conditions. As midfield battle, that's Kalle Jokinen coming. Oh, and a spinner right in front of him on the grass again for Jokinen. That's twice he's been forced out there so far in this semi-final, as Ashley Stitchbury there, John West's sparring partner from early on, comes back and steals another place. And both these hoping to get the last couple of places on the grid for the final. Stitchbury then just gets ahead of John West as they go into the final lap. Jokinen getting away out front of these two as they battle on. Stitchbury, though, out on that old circuit. He's going to risk that flag. You can't. And indeed, Stitchbury, that's 61. He is going to get disqualified. The checkered flag waves for Oliver Gavin to win a very impressive drive in the semi-final as the black flag and disqualification awaits Stitchbury. Gavin then delighted with that victory ahead of his teammate Neil Cunningham, with Jan Magnussen pressing on and getting that third place. Chris Hall fourth, Justin Keane a very impressive fifth from 12th on the grid, and Lenoir wins that French battle.
Two more quarter-finals and the resulting semi will provide half the field for the second of the semis. Some aggressive, talented drivers at the front of the field, but the view from Andrew McCauley's Works Van Diemen that had started from the inside of the front row showed the perilous conditions that the drivers faced. An unpredictable surface and only occasional visibility. The sort of conditions tailor-made for the kind of incident that could stop the race. And that incident came as the first four had already tiptoed their way around Druids. Rui Aguas of Portugal had been forced wide, then spun back across the field, three of whom found it impossible to take avoiding action. Aguas was trapped in the car but was freed, suffering only bruising. The red flags then came out to stop the race. McCauley and the other leaders responded and slowed immediately. Other drivers behind were less well behaved, respecting neither the red flag or the emergency vehicles on the track. The wrath of the clerk of the course, John Nicol, was incurred.
There is a repetition. You will all be out of the festival. I hope I make myself clear. You're there to race and race competitively, but if there is an emergency stop, please respond.
When the quarter-final was restarted, Ulster's Jonathan McGall was an impressive and convincing winner. Clearly, if conditions were wet for the rest of the competition, McGall would be the man to beat. But contrast that with the fortunes of Andrew McCauley. Highly fancied for the title before the festival began, a sticking throttle gave him this excursion at Paddock, followed by a more costly mishap at Surtees. McCauley only just survived in the event, but he was relegated to the back of the grid for his semi-final. The other quarter-final featured a man with some familiar support. The Australian Russell Ingall was being run by Grand Prix driver Martin Donnelly, continuing his slow recovery from the injuries he suffered in Spain 2 years ago. In last year's festival final, Ingall had Mark Goossens in his sights all the way, but as he shaped up for a title-winning manoeuvre on the last lap, it all went wrong. But Ingall had proved he was a man who could run with the best, and he was following the route that his team boss had taken in the early 80s.
10 years ago, Formula 4 Festival, I was here competing. I was a driver. I finished 12th in the final. Hopefully he'll finish a little bit higher up than that. But I mean, it's good memories. I mean, half of Ireland's here. And, you know, it's good. I enjoy it very much. And everybody, like, from all over Europe and all over the world comes to do it.
And you're in fitness now?
I'm good. I mean, obviously I've still got a problem with the left leg. It doesn't mean enough for me to sit and drive. I've got a 2,000 test in about 2 weeks' time, and that's just for my own satisfaction, and we'll see how we get on with that.
In the meantime, you got a driver to yell at anyway.
Yes, give him some abuse.
No abuse required after Russell Ingall's comfortable victory in that last quarter-final. He was able to manage a faster time than Jonathan McGall had achieved in the wet conditions earlier, so Martin Donnelly was able to shepherd his man onto pole position for the second of the semis. So Ingall on pole position from McGall, Van Diemen and Mondial on the front row. The French Formula 3 driver Frank Guibert on the second row with Britain's Andy Stapley. That was how the front of the grid looked. The top 14 would go through to the final. And that meant that after his quarter-final problems, Andrew McCauley had to make up 5 places before he'd make the back of the final grid. But the Irishman, never giving up, had ambitions way beyond that.
I think if the circuit stays the way it is, it'll be wet with a dry line, which makes it really hard to pass. So I'll have to pass 5 cars before you can qualify for the final. And from then on, the more cars I pass, the further up the grid will start to the final. I think the best thing to do in the opening laps is to really have a blast and catch people when they're trying to get settled in and a bit unawares. Usually you make more paces in the first 2 or 3 laps than you will do for the rest of the race.
So while McCauley awaits a blast from 20th position on the grid, the front row await the swap from red to green of the lights. They turn to green and McGall makes the best start from the outside of the front row. conditions beginning to dry. McGall swoops across and takes lead off Ingle. Ingle tries to go back to the inside of McGall as they go into paddock corner for the first time, but McGall will have nothing on it, and this is what it's like in the middle of the pack as Macaulay tries to keep out of trouble. There are two spinners early on, that's Jonathan Harmer and Tim Brewster, as the rest of the pack file up into Druids, slithering around. Macaulay has to be so careful. There and right in front of him, that's the danger for Macaulay. That's Marcello Brescioni, spins right in front of Macaulay, but Macaulay gets away with it. We're on board now with American Ashton Lewis, middle of the pack, adjusting his mirrors as they go into Surtees, and Ashton doing very well, impressing from an American coming over here to battle with the best of Formula 4, down in 7th place at the moment as the leaders go through clearways. McGall heads Ingle. Two very experienced drivers that have done seasons of Formula 3 in the past and now move back to Formula Ford as Macaulay battles up through. He's already been past 2, 3 or 4. He's now shaping up in the slipstream to see which will he go to the left or the right. He jinks to the right, takes one up the inside. He's got to be so careful. He gets two more, but out wide. That's Ken Bowes, the young driver, also being very impressive in the festival. He's now the one in front of Macaulay. Macaulay's next target as they go up to Druids, right in front of Ken Bowes. That's Candriello, another target for the recovering Macaulay to get by. But Bowes now is immediate. Bowes slides slightly. Macaulay now will look to get to the inside, get up to the left. Out front though, no such problems for McGall. Clear track ahead of him. Ingle following his wheel tracks. And the impressive Frenchman Frank Guibert doing very well in 3rd place, but dropping away slightly from these two experienced men. Another spinner there, that's, it's not another spinner, it's Brescioni, the Uruguayan, having another rotation. As Macaulay, he's got past Bowes, he's now shaping up to go by Calandriello along top straight. And he's on the outside, Bowes is right up on the inside. So this is the long way around the outside. Calandriello's still on the inside, and he has to take the wide line, but he gets the power down, he gets the speed up the hill to Druids Hill corner. And Macaulay driving a superb drive. He's now got one of the works Rays ahead of him, and that's Ashton Lewis, the young American as well. The other camera car is 2 cars ahead, but first he's got to get by. That's Andy Charsley in another of the local build. That's Andy Charsley, who's the current champion of Brands Hatch, this year's champion. And Macaulay's up the inside of him as they go into Surtees. Charsley tries to close the door, but Charsley's out on that wetter line. And really this is a problem now with the track. There's a dry-ish line appearing as Andy Stapley, the other Ray driver, takes the long way around. Ashton Lewis looks up the inside. Macaulay tries to get by Lewis. So into the slipstream now. They start the straight, pulling out early. Macaulay had the momentum out of clearways. He's alongside. Now comes the famous paddock braking area down the outside and chopping across, and really Macaulay making it look very easy. Ashton Lewis learning fast but not fast enough as Macaulay goes up to Druids. Now chasing Andy Stapley for 5th place. Stapley leaves the door open. Macaulay's up the inside. Can he get the power down? Can he accelerate down the hill? Stapley's got the drive out of the corner. Lewis slides out wide. Ken Bowes there tries to get by Lewis, but the leader's unaware of all this action behind. Both driving very level-headed races, looking for a position in the final. 1st and 2nd rows will be rewarded if they finish like this. McGall in the Northern Ireland Mondial chassis, having a tremendous drive and bringing back the heydays of Mondial. But Macaulay now up inside Stapley. Has he got the speed out of the corner to get in the slipstream? Stapley shuts the door. They start the straight, the charge to paddock corner. The slipstream now will pull Macaulay's car forward. He dives, and nearly clips the back. Stapley leaves the door open slightly, and Macaulay just goes steaming through. Tremendous, up to 5th. Now, can he get to 4th? Remember, this is from 20th place on the grid. 4th place is Brian Cunningham up ahead of him. The most impressive, probably the young Americans that have shown at the festival this year. Cunningham, a very aggressive driver, but Macaulay wants to get after him. The rest of the pack fielder, and still these front two have been tied together for so many laps now. Ingle finding no open. McGall just so level-headed, very experienced, not making mistakes that younger drivers make, not opening any doors for Ingle to get through. As Stapley slides wide, it's not Stapley getting these Rays confused. That's Charlesley who's moved forward to lead the Ray attack as Ashton Lewis tries to sort them both out and Ken Bowes follows in their slipstream. Here is Ashton Lewis now trying to get by Stapley it is now as Charlesley is the leading of these two identical Team Ray cars locally built at Brands Hatch and of course champions of Brands this year in the hands of Charlesley. Bowes, Candriello also shadowing this little quartet, all wanting to move up more places to get higher up that grid for the final. Ken Bowes looks this way, looks that, tries to go around the outside of Lewis. Lewis holding on. Bowes, though, might have the drive, but no, Lewis slides out. In fact, Bowes almost losing a place to Candriello as they go into Graham Hill Bend. Now most cars taking the drier racing line on the inside as they go along this bending Cooper Straight. Candriello wants to get by Bowes. Bowes wants to get by Lewis, and Lewis wants to get by Stapley. Up to Clearways. Lewis looks to the inside. Can he get through? He's alongside, but again, Stapley probably got that drive onto the straight as they accelerate now up to third gear, up to fourth gear. But up front, it's exactly the same status quo. Tremendously close Formula 4 driving between two drivers that respect each other greatly and who don't want to make too many mistakes. McGall then leads another lap. Ingle always looking for a mistake to get through, but McGall not leaving any doors open. Been so impressive, Jonathan. He's been aggressive but control. And here we have McCauley's caught Cunningham. He's trying to get a long way around the outside at Druids, sliding out. Cunningham tries to shut the door. McCauley, though's got the inside line for Graham Hill Bend. And a tremendous drive by McCauley now up to fourth place. Brian Cunningham learning all the time. He really has been very impressive in this festival. Oh, and that's Derek Watts, the young junior champion, spinning out. Disappointment for him. In fact, that was the battle. This is the battle now for 14th, for the last place on the grid for the final and diving up the inside. That's 36 Carlos Azevedo. He wants to be in the grand final, and that's the battle for the last place. And this is the battle for the first place. McGall still having Ingle right in his wheel tracks, the pressure on as they go charging past the pits. That's the Rays, and that's Ken Bowes. We've lost Ashton Lewis from this little battle because that's Ken Bowes now that's moved up to challenge the two Ray teammates. And they're not that much of a teammates, there's no team orders here as Stapley goes back inside Charlesley. Ken Bowes looks to get by them both if there's any mistakes. The leaders, they could be in trouble, they've caught back markers, but McGall up the inside. And Ingle looking for any errors, any slips, but McGall did that exactly right. He covered himself and at the same time got by the back mark without losing any momentum. And Ingle, really, he cannot crack the lead McGall has. McGall very strong under pressure and Ingle finding no ways past. Down Paddock Hill Bend, it's a very steep drop and then the rise up to Druids. McGall still leads, Ingle still finds no opening at all. McGall and Ingle, they touch and Ingle's come off worst. He's spun out and having watched for so long, half a gap and he went for it and he's paid the price. That's Guibeg. Guibeg goes through to second, so Ingle down to third. No, McCauley goes through to third. Ingle down, and Cunningham. Ingle down to fifth, trying to recover all the time. Cunningham's made it up to fourth. Ingle doesn't want to let him have it. He moves this way and that. Cunningham looking over his shoulder, looking in his mirrors. This can be a frantic last lap now because Ingle is probably angry. He wants to get as many places back. Really realistic. He could go for fourth if he can get by young Brian Cunningham. McGall now goes on to his last lap, breathing much easier, no pressure at all. A tremendous drive from Jonathan McGall from Northern Ireland. He's going to win this semi-final. That'll be on the front row for the final. But who's going to be on the fourth row? Will it be Cunningham or will it be Ingle? Ingle now will look to pull inside on the charge. He's got inside. Cunningham shuts the door though. Cunningham may not have raced at Brands very often, but he knows how to shut the door up to Druids. Ingle now trying the long way around the outside, but it's greasy, but he's no, Cunningham's gone wide. Ingle gets alongside down to Graham Hill Bend. Can Cunningham hold him off? He does, but Cunningham slides wide, and Ingle says, thank you very much, up the inside, and just a little manoeuvre over to show, and Cunningham won't give up. Tremendous fighting by Brian Cunningham. Ingle really had the line there, he was through, and their infighting has almost let Charles in the leading Rays catch them up. In fact, it's not Charles, it's Stapley back in front, but in front overall, and the very dominant semi-final winner is Jonathan McGool. But here we look at Ingle's one attempt to wrest the lead. McGool went slightly wide, Ingle tries to go up, but really the gap was never there. They clattered wheels, Ingle spins out, and he's the loser. So tight are these lines in Formula Ford racing that one attempt...
Frantic 20 laps that the short circuit at Brands Hatch sees each season. The 28 finalists have been culled from an entry representing over 20 countries. We were taking a particular interest in Ashton Lewis Jr., 20 years old from Chesapeake, Virginia. Standing starts are not the style in North American racing, and Lewis learned quickly. He'd been impressive in the heats and semi-final, good enough for a place on row 10 of the final. Lewis clearly owed a lot to the experience and advice of his team boss, John Village.
John's been great. He helped me out with the start in the race. Of course, I've never done a standing start before, and this is my first experience with it. And he helped me out there, and he's just kind of, since he's been through all the festivals before, he's been giving me advice on, you have to be aggressive but not too aggressive. So he's been a lot of help.
Gets a bit lively from now on.
Yeah, it really does.
What would actually winning this mean to you and the progress of your career?
It'd be incredible. Americans never won it. I think the highest they've ever placed is 4th. So we're out there to beat that.
The second onboard camera will be carried by a man who was lucky to be in the final at all. Works Van Diemen driver Andrew McCauley had his throttle stick open in the quarter-final. He was reduced to the back of the grid for his semi. In one of the most spectacular drives of the weekend, he came through to 3rd.
I thought, well, I might be lucky to maybe finish 5th, 6th, but coming 3rd, it's a really good result. Starting 3rd row of the final, and really, but we're in with a big shout again.
First couple of laps, which were going to be so important to you, how many places do you reckon you made up in those first couple of laps?
I'm not sure how many I made up. I wasn't even looking at the board, to be honest, but I'm sure I must have passed half the field in the first couple of laps, because really that's the most important time. Because it was drying and drying and drying, the car was becoming a bit more like it would in the dry. It wasn't sliding about as much. It didn't have as much problems with traction and turn-in, so the whole car inspired confidence in the driver, because it did exactly what the driver wanted,
If you've exceeded your best hopes in that semi-final, what are your hopes now for the final? Do you think you got a chance?
I'm going to win it. I'm going to win it.
McCauley not short of confidence and with a definite chance coming off row 3. But Jonathan McGool and Oliver Gavin would share the front row, both looking so impressive. Frank Guibert of France alongside Neil Cunningham on row 2. Jan Magnussen of Denmark, one of the pre-festival favourites, on row 3 with McCauley. This is the race that would do so much for the future prospects of at least one young driver. Commentary from Tiff Needell.
Jonathan McGool then straps himself into pole position. Here, as they put the bodywork on, you can see the steel tube construction of Formula Fords. It keeps the cost down. No carbon fibre monocoques in this formula. Sharing that front row with Jonathan McGool and is Oliver Gavin, who's really shown the fastest form all weekend. He must start as favourite. Inside the second row, the French challenge. Frank Guibert, the leading of the Continentals, shares that row with Australian Neil Cunningham. The third row, McCauley lines up with Jan Magnussen, the young Danish sensation. 20 laps in this grand final, they're ready to go. Already out though on the warming up lap is Justin Keane, who banged wheels, suspension damage, 27 cars then await the red turning to green for the grand final. It's green, McGool, Gavin equal off the start, tremendous starts by both men, but Gavin edges ahead. Can he get round the outside into paddock? McGool holds on. McGool won't give ground easy. They're almost touching as they go up to Druids. Gavin tries to get down the outside. McGool has none of it. Behind the pack, locking brakes. McCauley there, Magnussen just ahead of him. That's Guibert on his right. The Guibert's on his right. They go down into Graham Hill Bend. And whoa, that's McCauley on the grass again. Guibert spins and spins. And Guibert's getting out. Guibert's looking for who hit him. Well, this is the man that hit him, and it's McCauley, and he's back on the track looking for more action. But he's at the back of the field. McGool goes back through into the lead. Gavin has got the lead, but McGool won't give up. Guibert is out. And so that's Andy Charlesley, very disappointed. The champion of Brands is out, but McGool holds on. Gavin's trying to go up the outside into paddock. Cunningham's trying to hold third ahead of Magnussen, but Magnussen's round the outside. Gavin didn't succeed, Magnussen did. They weave, now Gavin's up the inside of McGall as they go up to it. McGall slams the door in his face. Gavin locks wheels, gets out of the game. McGall really with nothing to lose there, just shut the door. Here we see McCauley's downfall early on into Graham Hill Bend. That's Guibert. They just interlock wheels. It was a case of 2 into 1 won't go, and I think maybe Guibert might feel a little aggrieved there that the charging McCauley had him off. But McGall defends the lead from Gavin and Magnussen. Cunningham now in fourth and a gap back to Andy Stack. Gavin's up the inside at Clearways, tremendous. The lead has changed 3 or 4 times in the first 2 laps as Magnussen now tries to follow Gavin through. But can Gavin now break away? Gavin in his heat, his quarter-final, his semi-final, he's just led from the front all the way. Now Magnussen must get by McGall. Really the drying conditions now, it's virtually dry on the racing line. It's greasy. McGall weaves to the right to block Magnussen. The conditions really not suiting McGall as much, and Magnussen revelling in the dry conditions. He didn't like it when it was wet. He likes it dry. He doesn't want Gavin to get away. He must get by McGall as soon as possible. He pulls on the inside now. McGall now must be beaten. Magnussen holds the inside line, and indeed through he goes. Gavin hasn't got away, so now Magnussen get his head down and charge after leading Gavin. McGall holds on in third, Cunningham fourth. Russell Ingall has moved up to fifth ahead of Andy Stapley, and these front 6 now equally spaced as they stream onto another lap up to Paddock Corner. And Magnussen closes under braking for Paddock. Really, he's been so impressive. Here, midfield, Ashton Lewis looking to battle his way up through. He tries to get up inside, but instead he's got Kalle Jokinen, the Finnish champion, charging round the outside of him. He loses a place, in fact, going up to do it, the doors shut in his face, and Ashton now really beginning to learn the hard way that Formula Ford racing is tough, especially when it dries out. Jokinen is someone who started, 22nd on the grid, having a lot of troubles in the wet, and another man that's very much more suited to these drying conditions. So the Finnish and another place lost there by Lewis. That's Vigas, the Portuguese driver, and that's McCauley right up again, battling up, and now we're in car with McCauley, following Ashton Lewis out from Clearways onto the straight, pulling inside Lewis and storming by. So now McCauley's got Vigas ahead of him, and Lewis has got a lot to think about as this frantic pack streamline across. Here Lewis now following McCauley into Paddock. This is going to learn off a champion like McCauley. McCauley will slice through the pack. McCauley looks inside of Vigas and goes straight through. Bold, positive overtaking manoeuvres are what pay in Formula Ford. Can Lewis repeat that? Can he follow McCauley through? We're in car with Lewis now as he follows Vigas along this bending Cooper Straight up to Surtees. The streaming pack through Surtees corner. McCauley out slightly wide there. Jokinen moving up another place, slicing through the pack. Jokinen, tremendous drive as well, but up front this is the challenge. These are the leaders. Magnussen looks to the left of Gavin and got to Paddock, tremendously late on the brakes. Can he pull that off? Round the outside, but Gavin's holding on. They touch almost everywhere. Gavin's not giving up. He's up the inside, but it's still wet there. Magnussen shut off. Gavin pushes his gearbox. His nose is knocked slightly astray. That could be problems there for Gavin, but McCauley's got problems of his own as he battles now with that's Jokinen a couple of places up. He's trying to follow him up through the field. So close. McCauley gets through. Jokinen goes up another place as well. That's Mark Cole now, the next target for McCauley, and then Jokinen, the Finnish champion, ahead of him. Along Cooper Straight, another place made up. McCauley is just flying through this field. Jokinen equally impressive. He's been so disappointing in the wet, but no disappointment with this battle for the front. 2 great drivers. Magnussen there defending. Gavin tried to get back at him as soon as possible. He's not getting away. Neil Cunningham is dropping back slightly in third place. Gavin now tries the outside, braking deep. Round, it's greasy there. Gavin hangs on round the outside. They go a little bit wide and Magnussen's off. Gavin's off. Cunningham gets through into the lead. They both get back on again, but Gavin loses third and fourth. He's wiping his visor, there's mud everywhere, and that's a tremendous shame for Oliver Gavin, the Englishman that had looked so good, but that was an over-ambitious manoeuvre round the outside. Oh, and another one that's even more ambitious. That's Azevedo, who we saw battle to get that last position on the grid. But Gavin now, and then Magnusson, who'd lost that lead by going off as well straight away, round the outside, that favourite manoeuvre as he's so late on the brakes at paddock, and he just drives round Cunningham to go back into the lead. Ingle now third, Stately fourth, McGall fifth, and then the French challenge in sixth place. From French Championship leader, that is Alex Giannoret, who's up into sixth, and Ken Bowes, a tremendous seventh place from 15th on the grid, and Bowes it is trying to move up through the field. McGall, though, holds sway of a little battle for fifth. Giannoret, though, tries to go up the inside of McGall. Not as quick in these conditions. The drying conditions didn't suit his Mondial chassis. And Ken Bowes also here. This is Oliver Gavin's, and they're pieces of metal falling out the bottom.
The nose clip came off, and it's floating around in the footwell. I'm not going to, you know, we weren't going to finish anyway in the top three, and it was, you know, I was risking my life. That could have got stuck behind the brake pedal, and I could have had a big shunt. I wasn't going to risk that.
The normally calm Oliver Gavin showing the results of the adrenaline that pumps through these young drivers as they charge up through the field. And this really is a huge battle with Ashton Lewis right in the middle of it. A midfield battle, and they're off into the tyre walls. That's Vigas. We saw him earlier on, the young Portuguese driver. He had been doing so well. He was ahead of Ashton, but he's now gone. And that's Jackie Scheckter diving out of the slipstream, trying to get past Scandinavian champion Thomas Johansson as Vigas climbs sadly out of his battered Swift. Jackie Scheckter, the son of Ian Scheckter, brother of former world champion Jody Scheckter, one of many drivers coming to this Formula Ford Festival to try to show their talent, as is Brian Cunningham, the young American, showing his talent, staying ahead of McCauley. McCauley looks to the inside, oh, and they bang right in the middle of Cooper Straight, and McCauley doesn't. Cunningham has been so aggressive all weekend, and that was a big impact, but McCauley holds on and will be even more determined than ever now to take what's this 8th place off of Cunningham. He moves inside. Cunningham shuts that door down rather late again. There's that fine dividing line between closing the door when you're ahead and closing it when someone's already up the inside. McCauley moves to the left. Tremendous onboard shot as he tries to get round the outside, tucks the inside, pulls the inside, down Paddock Hill, and almost a touch. Then McCauley looks across at the young American and as if to say, don't try that on me again, boy. And Cunningham also loses out to Candriello, who's also charging back up through the pack, and Jokinen now the next to challenge the young American. McCauley then up to 8th place. What's been a tremendous recovery drive. Cunningham fighting to hold on as Jokinen again, the other man that's come up from the back. McCauley though out front and pulling. He's on the guard. He's off on the dirt, and oh, after all that work, Andrew McCauley, very uncharacteristically, whether he had damaged something in that clash with Cunningham, because he just slightly understeered wide, slid off the circuit and gave 8th place back to Candriello, who's now ahead of Jokinen, who's made the most of that and pushed poor Cunningham back down to the base. Jokinen now trying to go by Candriello and does so round the outside of the Venezuelan in tremendous style, and one wonders if the whole meeting had been dry how much further up Jokinen could have been. The battle, though, now with Magnussen pulling away really is for second place between two very experienced Australians, Neil Cunningham. And Neil Cunningham just pulls over, and Russell Ingall storms by to second, Stately third, and that a terrible disappointment for Neil Cunningham. It looks like a throttle have broken or gearbox has gone. All of a sudden, no drive at all, and Neil Cunningham coasts to a retirement. He would have so loved to have won this festival. Magnussen had been edging away. Cunningham wasn't threatening, but nevertheless, Neil Cunningham, a very likeable driver with a great future ahead of him, albeit not in this festival. So retirement for Cunningham. The Swift Championship Challenge has expired, and this is the Works Van Diemen of McCauley, and he looks like he's in all sorts of handling troubles. Indeed, he's pulling away into the pit lane. There you can actually see the bottom right-hand front suspension bent as he's pulling in, and that was from that clash with Brian Cunningham along Cooper Straight. And here is Cunningham trying to do exactly the same thing to get, what, 9th or 10th place back off Candriello. Jokkinen's pulled away, and these two now battling as hard as they ever have. Every position counts so much in the Formula Ford Festival, but no position counts more than number one. And that looks like going to Jan Magnussen as he starts his last lap, as Andrew McCauley steps out of his battered Van Diemen, and a very disappointed man. But this man won't be disappointed at all. Jan Magnussen, the teenage Danish sensation, his first ever year of car racing. He's impressed greatly. He's done the British Championship this year. Many wins, but no wins greater than the Formula Ford Festival. He takes the light, locks up his brakes in extrovert style to show his delight, and treats the car like a demonstration hot rodder. All the joys of success. But there in the pit lane, two rather sadder figures, Oliver Gavin and Andrew McCauley, for whom the weekend promised so much but delivered so little. Nevertheless, they did try, and no one tried harder than Gavin to hold off the charging Magnussen, who was so brilliant on the brakes into paddock. That round the outside manoeuvre that took the lead was just a breathtaking manoeuvre. And Gavin really tried so hard, it was wet on the inside, he could have braked later had it been dry, but Magnussen shut the door in his face, and all Oliver could do was give him a little friendly push on his way to a sensational victory.
So Jan Magnussen, his first season of circuit racing, is now on his way into the higher reaches of the sport. Formula 3 and Formula 3000 beckon, after what had been a very traditional introduction into motor racing.
I started off karting in '84, won the Junior World Championship in '87 and '89, and the Senior World Championship in '90. '91 was a bad season for me in go-kart, so I decided to move up, and so it's been the right move.
What now? What's the route forward now?
I've got nothing. I'm still open for any offer. I've got nothing signed yet. I'll have to speak with people now.
But today might have persuaded a few people of the ability that you've got anyway.
I hope so.
Breathless action and maybe a big star of the future at Brands Hatch. Stars of the present at Adelaide next weekend, the Australian Grand Prix, the last round of the Formula One World Championship, and we'll have